I'm Gretchen Waldman, and this is Sharon Weston, and we are here for Springing into Health, our March cooking class. So this is being recorded, so hopefully you'll tune in later if you aren't with us right now, but we have lots to get going. So let's go. We're gonna start with a frittata.
Yes, we have lots of fun stuff to do today. We are going to be doing egg frittata. We're going to be doing 3 recipes: an egg frittata, a quinoa salad with a vinaigrette, and then we're going to be making fruit kebabs with this yummy dip. And then we're going to be talking about spring tips and exercise tips and lots of stuff that really is applicable to spring. So first thing is, like, have you ever made a frittata?
I have never. I'm not the chef in this partnership here, so no, I want to know, how do I make it?
So frittatas are pretty cool because you can kind of do whatever you want. It's a very flexible recipe. And so this is the basic frittata recipe, where you have 8 eggs, you add about a 1/4 cup of milk, some cheese, some vegetables, and then you start it on the stove, but then it goes into the oven, and it's very, very simple, right? So the recipe that we're going to be doing today is we're going to be using 8 eggs, and then we're going to be using some olive oil. We're going to add a little milk, or if you're not using regular milk, you can use any kind of milk substitute. Totally works fine. Ripple milk, oat milk, almond milk, soy milk. And then
do Fairlife. You can do extra protein.
You could do Fairlife with the extra protein.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. Awesome. Yep. Which is actually what we're doing here. And then you can also vary the fat in the milk too. So you can go from all the way from skim up to whole milk.
Okay.
And that just changes the fat grams. And then we're going to be adding some shredded cheese. You could also use a dairy-free substitute if you wanted to. You could use like Daiya, non-dairy cheese. And then in this recipe, we're using 1.5 cups of sliced mushrooms. We're going to be doing a cup of diced peppers, some diced zucchini, and some salt and pepper. So I've got the oven on 350 degrees. I'm going to be starting on the stove top here. And so I've got this cast iron pan that is able to go from the stove to the oven. And that's really the key thing for frittata. So you want to be able to have a pan that does not have a plastic or meltable handle, or any part of it is meltable, so that it can go straight into the oven, right? If you don't have that, you could pour it into a different dish.
Okay.
And then, so off of the stove, pour all that into your dish, and then put that into the oven. All right. So we're going to be starting just by heating this up on high heat. All right. And I'm just going to be putting in about 2 tablespoons of olive oil into our pan. And then I'm going to give that a little stir around. All right. And then we already did our dicing in advance. So we are adding our mushrooms. Oh yeah. So this is about 1.5 cups of sliced mushrooms, a cup of diced peppers, and then a cup of diced zucchini. And we're just going to add all of that in. Okay.
And then when you're putting it, how long do you usually keep it on the?
So this is really something where you want to saute these for about 6 to 10 minutes until they're soft.
Okay.
If you notice that extra liquid has come off of your vegetables, because like we're cooking mushrooms, and mushrooms surprisingly give off a lot of liquid when they cook.
Okay.
You want to pour that off, because you don't want to pour that into the eggs, or the frittata is going to be too liquidy.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great.
So you know, it depends on the vegetables that you're using. You can also add different seasonings to this. So I've got this Georgian seasoning blend that's really a mixture of chili peppers, coriander, garlic, salt, and I'm just going to sprinkle a little of that in, but you could keep this plain. You could just use salt and pepper.
Okay.
You could do anything that you want. You could do like an Italian kind of seasoning blend. And that would, you know, just give it its own unique flavor.
We just found at Trader Joe's, they have a pizza shaped like a pizza blend. So we were using that on sweet potatoes at home and just to
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of spice it up a little bit. So it's yummy. It looks
Yeah.
just like that. Yep.
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna just put the lid on this, all right? And then we can move the bowl of eggs right there.
Okay. So I've cracked them all and I did have to get out a few shells. Oops.
Oh, do you know the trick to get the shells out?
No.
If you crack eggs into a bowl and the shell goes in there,
Yeah.
if you wet your finger with water and then stick it in, it will get it.
Oh.
If you don't wet your finger with water, it kind of plays keep away.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah, the
Same
water.
with the spoon. I just did it with a spoon and it was keep away. So here we are. All right. So we have
8
eggs,
eggs.
and then we're gonna take our milk that Sharon had already
Yeah.
measured out for us.
So that's like a 1/4 cup of milk or 2 ounces of milk.
All right, and then we're gonna give a little salt and pepper.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just gonna. open this up. It's just powdered salt here. We're just gonna do it like a little batch.
A little magic. Awesome. And then we'll whisk it right up. Okay, what's your trick to get all the yolks?
I stab them.
Stabbing. Okay. There we go. We're stabbing the eggs and we're pinching the salt.
And if you don't have a whisk, you can use a fork. That works fine,
Mhm.
you know,
The
so,
vegetables smell so good.
yeah, yeah.
Just gonna grab a hot of this.
All right. And again, this is such an easy recipe that you could add tomatoes, you could add any colored vegetables you want, you know. So you can see this is starting to get softer.
And then when do we put the cheese in?
So we are gonna let's see, so vegetables are gonna cook, then you're going to pour the egg mixture into this once the vegetables are cooked. But first, we're gonna make sure we drain off the extra liquid.
Okay.
Then the cheese goes in on top last and it's sprinkled all over the top of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
So, all right. And so while that's cooking, I'm just gonna talk a little about eggs. So, all right, so eggs, I feel like eggs have gotten a bad rap over the
Lot of
last
cholesterol,
few
right?
decades, you
Yeah.
know. But eggs are actually one of the most nutritious foods on the planet because like one egg can grow an entire animal, right? A little chick can grow just from that egg.
Yeah.
Amazing,
Yeah.
right? So, and for humans, there's only one source of nutrition that's more complete than an egg, and that's breast milk.
Okay.
So eggs are really great protein sources for us, you know, and a lot of people think, oh, eggs are not good for us because they have cholesterol in them.
Right.
And it is true that like one egg usually has about a little over 200 milligrams of cholesterol, and we shouldn't have much more than 300 milligrams of cholesterol each day.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
But the thing is that what they found now is that we all know that our liver is our cholesterol warehouse. It's like our manufacturing division for cholesterol. You know?
Okay.
And so our liver makes cholesterol. And when we eat cholesterol, then our liver slows down making cholesterol because it knows that our body has cholesterol coming from
another way. Okay.
our diet, right?
Okay.
So actually there's most of the population doesn't get affected. Their cholesterol does not get affected by eating
By
eggs.
just eating eggs.
There are some people that are hyper responders though, and they are sensitive to eating more eggs. And so you're kind of just not going to know that unless you get your cholesterol tested and
Sure.
and really, you know, check out your intake of eggs. But in general, we say like 2 egg yolks a day is fine.
Okay.
Unlimited egg whites, because all the cholesterol is in the yellow part
In
of
the
the
yolk.
egg.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
We split that
So-
in my house. My son likes the
Yeah.
yolk and I like the white. So we split it on up.
Yeah, so you can see
yeah, look at
here
the
that
water.
there is some liquid coming off, right? One of the tricks is now that it's really cooking is to keep the lid off, because that will also help that liquid evaporate a little.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have this under really pretty high heat, so we're just gonna cook that a little more. All right, And meanwhile, then the next thing that we're gonna be getting ready to do is we're gonna be making our quinoa salad, all right?
Great.
So while that's just finishing cooking, I'm gonna just talk a little about the salad. So we have here 1 cup of cooked, well, this is the result
Of this.
of 1 cup of uncooked quinoa. So it makes a lot more quinoa than what it started as, you know, so, and then I'm just gonna break it up because, we want it to not be too clumpy, and I just cooked this about an hour ago, all right? And so when you cook quinoa, basically it's a 2-to-1 ratio, so whatever the amount of dry quinoa you have, you add twice the amount of water.
Okay. Okay.
So 1 cup of dry quinoa is 2 cups of water needed to cook that.
And how much is that?
And 1 cup of
You did
dry.
one,
Yeah,
yeah.
isn't that amazing? That's a
Yeah,
lot
that's a
more.
lot of food.
So it
yeah.
seems like it's like tripled at least, or fourfolded even.
Yeah.
And this, what I'm using here is a multicolored quinoa mixed with plain quinoa. You can get all different colored quinoas now, and we'll talk about quinoa in a second, but yeah, quinoa is a really cool grain, you know, it's gluten-free, very high in protein.
Okay.
Those ancient grains.
And what makes it so high in protein?
So it is a very old grain, right? It's
Okay.
one of the pseudo cereals, and so yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been around for a very, very long time, and a lot of people get tricked by the spelling of quinoa and call it quinoa, but it's not. It's quinoa. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So quinoa is very easy to cook, right?
There's water.
Gluten-free, loaded with nutrients, and it's kind of like what we call a complete protein because it does have all 9 essential amino acids in it.
Wow.
Even though it is slightly lower on lysine than some of the other foods that are I'm just gonna turn this off. Complete proteins like from animal proteins, but it is really a great protein from a plant that meets our essential amino acid needs.
Okay.
You know,
And even just reading on the back of this label here, it says, you know, serving size is 1/4 cup dry. So just like you said, so I would put in a 1/2 cup of water.
Yep.
Right. So I double that.
Yep.
And that's 27 grams of carbs, 6
Yep.
grams of protein. I mean, that's going to be a lot of quinoa
This is
for 27 carbs.
Yeah.
That's a lot of food.
Yeah.
That's great.
So so it's very economical,
Mhm.
and it really, you know, is very easy to make. So
And with the different colors, you said, why would you choose one just because it's prettier, or is it more, it's a health decision?
yeah, I mean, I think that every different colored food gives us different antioxidants.
Mhm.
So and also, you know, there's just some extra fiber, I think, in some of the darker colored ones.
Okay.
So, but in general, I would say, you know, whatever you prefer.
Okay.
Works. It's a good way to do it.
Okay.
So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, all right, so back to our egg frittata. So we've got our vegetables, and so you can see all the liquid kind of cooked off.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
So now we are gonna go ahead and first we're gonna just spread our vegetables around so they're kind of like even. Okay, and then
Okay.
you're gonna
So I
pour
can go
it.
ahead?
Yep. Pour the egg all over it. Nice.
All right.
And then we can go ahead and
do the
sprinkle the
cheese.
cheese. And you can just use your fingers and just kind of like get the cheese all kind of evenly all over it. And if you wanted to top it with salt and pepper, you could, but you don't really need to. And now, all right, this is ready to go into the oven. And it's gonna bake for about 15 to 20 minutes.
Awesome.
All right, so that is our frittata, and I'm just checking the time, 4:19. Okay, so we've got our quinoa salad next.
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna use a big bowl. Let's see, we can use that big one. Yep. And we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna mix up our vinaigrette. So we've got apple cider vinegar, we've got a little honey or maple syrup, and we also have a little olive oil, we've got a little Dijon mustard, some finely chopped garlic, salt and pepper, and that's about it, right?
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and start by adding 2 tablespoons of apple cider. 1, 2, okay. And then we're gonna go ahead and add about a tablespoon of honey. Oh, I just read a really cool trick for honey.
Okay.
If you take your measuring spoon and before you put the honey in, I should have told you this before.
Okay, please let us know what happens.
You pour the oil in first in the spoon. So our next ingredient is a tablespoon of olive oil, right?
Okay.
So if you use the measuring spoon and measure your oil first, now the measuring spoon is all covered slightly with olive oil, and then the honey does not stick to the
Slides
spoon.
right off. Okay, well,
Yeah.
we're gonna just work together on this. Oh, well.
That's okay.
I would take number 1.
I'm gonna get this Dijon mustard out. You can just give it a stir, like you can stir the spoon around in there and the honey will come off. Here's some mustard. So we got 2 teaspoons of Dijon mustard. And again, the Dijon mustard not only adds flavor, but it acts as an emulsifier.
Okay,
To the
tell me what
dressing.
that means.
So an emulsifier means that it keeps things together. So oil and vinegar are opposites because vinegar is kind of like water, right? Oil and vinegar and vinegar don't really stay together.
Right.
But when you add in the Dijon mustard, it connects the two and makes them not fall apart. So then they become friends. Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead and
We're gonna also add in our garlic. So let's go ahead and mix that in. So we have about 1 clove of very finely chopped garlic.
and a little salt and pepper.
A little salt and pepper.
You always put salt and pepper in, or just
I think most recipes call for it, you know, but you don't have to. It definitely makes things more flavorful.
it does. Okay.
You know, and it doesn't really affect the carb amount at all.
Right. Right.
So.
Okay. So there's our dress vinaigrette.
Yeah, so this is a plastic mason jar made by Ball. Yeah, so, but you can make this in anything, right? All right, and so now we're gonna go ahead and add our other stuff. So I'm gonna pour all of this quinoa into this big bowl and we're gonna add celery. So we have about a half a cup of diced celery. If you have more, it's not a problem. We're gonna add 2 chopped green onions, a cup of diced apple, and by the way, I chopped up a Granny Smith apple, and it doesn't turn brown. Because
Why is that?
Granny Smiths don't turn brown.
Oh, I love a Granny Smith. I might have
Yeah,
one.
isn't that pretty cool? So
Thank you.
yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and.
I love Granny Smith.
So if you have, if you wanted to bring an apple packed for school lunch, right? And your child doesn't really like biting into a whole apple and you want it sliced, but the problem is then it turns brown.
Sure.
If you use a Granny Smith apple and you could slice it, and then you can take a rubber band and like hold it back together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when your child opens up their lunchbox, they can just take the rubber band off and then the slices will be not brown.
Only apple that does that.
I think Cortland's also.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder why.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I know, right? That's pretty cool. So, all right, so we've got our quinoa. We can mix in we can add all that vinaigrette in there too. Actually, let's do that first. So we'll stir all this in. Okay.
Oh, this looks so good. And it smells delicious.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we just put
And
in.
then everything else just gets mixed right in.
All right. So I'm gonna go with
So
celery.
we're adding, celery, green onions. And then a cup of diced apple, and I kept the skin on so that you just get more flavor.
More fiber.
And
Okay.
all those nutrients are really just under the skin, so it's really, you get a lot of nutrition. 1 shredded carrot. And then we're also gonna add about 1/3 of a cup of dried cranberries or craisins.
And I feel like these have a good amount of carbs into it.
They do.
Mm.
So if you wanted to cut down the carbs in this recipe, you could cut down on that part. That's
Okay.
probably the highest
Yep.
carb amount in this
Okay.
whole, yeah. And then optional is to add a little fresh chopped cilantro or fresh parsley. We've got some parsley here. And that's just gonna add a little more like fresh spring flavor, right? So, yeah.
Oh, this looks
That
awesome.
looks really good.
Looks so yummy.
That's like a health salad.
Yeah, that is awesome. Awesome.
Yum. All
Wow.
right.
And you had put, so to get the nutrition facts on
Oh,
this
yes.
salad, and all the other recipes that we have, you use what?
So I use chronometer
Okay.
or chronometer, right? CRONO meter.
Yep.
Right? And it is an app that you can analyze any recipes on, and you can also enter your diary for the day, and you can set it so that your carb amounts show as your favorite macronutrient in your diary column. So it's really helpful to figure out your carbs per meal, per snack.
Okay.
Very easy. Yeah.
And on this one, I noticed it says 1 serving is
So-
32 carbs. So how would I know the serving?
Yeah, so this recipe makes 6 servings, which is pretty big servings, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So 1/6 of this whole recipe was that amount.
And 32 carbs.
Yeah.
And how much protein? 5, almost
Yeah.
4.5 grams
4.5.
of protein.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So, all right. And we talked about quinoa. And then our third recipe is our spring fruit kebabs with dip and cheese. So we have, let's see, we're gonna just assemble some stuff here.
All right. Here we have some of our kebab pieces, and then let's get our bowl.
And so what we're going to be doing is just making skewers, right? And we're also going to be making this dip, all right? So I'm just going to get this. So I have here a cup of vanilla yogurt. I'm using Light and Fit. Actually, I'm using Light and Fit Greek vanilla yogurt, right?
So added protein.
So that it bumped up the protein.
Okay.
But this recipe, the analysis for this recipe, I used regular Light and Fit, not Greek recipe.
Okay.
Not yogurt, yeah.
Okay.
So that's what's in here. And the Light and Fit it has less sugar.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the one that I like to use, I like the Light and Fit, but I also like the Chobani Zero. I feel like it has a lot of good protein in it too. So there's a ton of different yogurt options out there.
Yeah.
Too Good is one that I know a lot of our kids use too, but
Yeah.
just anything. And I think the protein piece is, again, protein makes your belly feel full, helps your glucose values a little bit. So add it in.
Yeah. So we're mixing our yogurt. It's like a 2-to-1 ratio of yogurt to sour cream.
Okay.
And then you can add up to 2 tablespoons of honey. If you want to cut down the sugar, you can just not even use honey, or you can use a tiny bit of honey.
Okay.
And then
The honey again.
I would just squirt it right into the bowl.
There you go.
Yeah.
Go for
So,
it.
I'm just gonna squirt a little in. So I'm gonna estimate about a tablespoon. Okay. And so mix that up, and then we need a little cinnamon. So about a 1/2 teaspoon or so.
And just
Ooh, nice.
lots of cinnamon.
All right. Cinnamon's good for your blood sugar control.
It is, and it smells delicious.
A natural spice that's good for diabetes. All right, yum. All right, so we've got our dip made.
That was easy.
I know, right?
Okay.
And then we're gonna go ahead and we're going to make some of our skewers. So this is where we're just going to, oh, these are so
Are these fun? Very spring-like. So then we're just.
So you're just alternating strawberries, grapes, and cheese cubes. Yeah. And so it's really whatever you like. And the analysis that I used was I added all of the ingredients up and then I divided by 12.
Okay. And again,
So-
cheese is not going to do anything
Right.
glucose wise, right?
Right.
But again, it's a great protein to fill that belly
Yep. So.
and eat. Love cheese.
These are so cute.
These are so fun.
All right.
And what a neat idea, you know, to bring to a last day of school party or some activity like this. These
Yeah,
might
it's
be
so
a fun,
healthy, right?
these might be a fun option.
Yeah.
I always think about that when I go to parties, you know, what kind of foods would I bring
Yes.
that's easier on my glucose values.
Yeah. Yeah.
But-
Yeah. And so, you know, just talking about all these things, like really like, you know, it's like spring almost, even though today doesn't really feel like spring outside, but this weekend's supposed to be very spring-like.
Awesome.
So
Awesome. Yes, baseball begins and we are ready. We are ready. So springing into action, healthy activities. It's so nice. We're going to get outside and move and move and move. And I know a lot of us have questions about what do we do diabetes wise? How do we make that fit? Because diabetes should not be stopping you from any activities. And working with your team is really important for your own specific individual needs, but we're going to chat a little bit about some guidelines and some thoughts. What's your favorite activity in the spring?
Oh, golf.
Oh, I do like golf. Oh, yeah, I like golf. I do like golf. I will say our world is baseball. Baseball, baseball, baseball. So when we think of diabetes and exercise, you know, it's really important to have a plan and know where you are, where you're coming from. So checking a glucose value, whether it's a sensor glucose or finger sticks, whatever you're doing, making sure that you're in a safe range before you're going out. Also thinking about, and we'll talk a little bit about differences, whether you're on an insulin pump or whether you're on injections. We can work with you to make sure that you're making healthy choices. The other thing that's really important is to bring something with you, just in case. Because sometimes diabetes just says, hey, I'm still here, and gives you that low blood sugar, even though you've planned and you've really got everything going, you just need to be prepared.
Yeah. And you know, like thinking about like those kind of snacks to bring with you that don't need refrigeration,
Yes.
you know?
Yep.
So like even like trail mix, you know, like nuts and craisins or raisins.
Yep.
That combination of like protein and fat plus that faster, higher sugar carb.
Right.
You know,
right.
Is a good kind of thing to have. Or I also say like, you know, it's good to just like have a jar of peanut butter in the car or sun butter,
Yep.
right? And just
Yep.
eating a spoonful of that
that's really
can
good.
help, you know, even before you're low, really just be something that is not going to fill you up and easy to do before sports and
Good.
Super easy, right?
Who doesn't love that? Love a peanut butter. Awesome. So let's go through this just a little bit. So when we want to consider our activity, there's a couple of things we think about. So what type of physical activity are you doing? How much are you doing? Your duration, and how hard are you doing it? So are we just going to walk the mall? Well, sometimes that can bring a glucose down, right? You're just casually walking with your friends, but you don't realize how long you've been there. And you're moving your body and you're moving your mind. So sometimes you can have a lower value there, or you could be running the marathon in a few weeks. That would not be me, but you could be running the marathon and you're going to really have to be thinking about it, of how you're going to successfully get through. So this just shows us a little bit about aerobic and anaerobic meaning. So aerobic is really just using your heart, and running is kind of an aerobic exercise. What's an anaerobic exercise? What's
like lifting weights?
Yeah,
I would think.
Yeah. Yep.
So
lifting weights, you know, your glucose value may rise when you're lifting weights because your muscles kind of give out some glucose as you're using them. So it's going to be very different responses and what your plan is according to what activity you're doing. So some of my friends will run at the gym and then do weights. So their glucose value will come down a little bit when they're running on the treadmill and then lift weights, and it kind of helps to balance out. And that's one of their strategies. And another strategy may be, gosh, you know, I'm a little bit on the lower side. I'm going to have a little bit of extra food before I go in to prevent that low from happening. So the other piece I always like people to think about too is exercise doesn't affect us right now always. It could affect us a little bit later on. So the overnight values, especially if you're, you really worked hard at gym, or you had gym at school and then you had soccer practice after school, and then maybe hockey that night, if you're a multi-sport kind of kid. So it's really important to be monitoring your glucose values and checking
And even things like dance, like a lot of
Yep.
our dancers have like super long dance practices.
Right. Especially
and
now we have
late at night
competitions,
too.
right? In competition season.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the other part too is I find that a lot of times, depending on what the activity is and how long you've been doing it, like your body responds a little bit differently. So like if you were playing soccer in the spring and then played football in the fall, your body may respond very differently because it's different activities. Or even spring soccer, summer soccer, your body may be a little bit different. So ultimately the goal is to really monitor your numbers and try to, see how your body responds, because everybody's so different.
And what about adrenaline?
Yeah. So adrenaline.
That's such a tricky thing.
Adrenaline is tricky.
Right?
Yep, absolutely. So adrenaline, meaning your glucose rises pretty quickly because your body's excited. It's a competition. And once the effects of adrenaline, so adrenaline is usually brings your glucose value up. Once that kind of settles down, you come home, you take a shower afterwards, then your glucose responds to that exercise. So I think with that piece, again, it's a good idea to work with your team about when you should be correcting your glucose value. So if you're coming out of an activity pretty high, you may kind of let it ride until you're settling down a little bit, and then take a glucose again and see where you are.
Because it seems like it can even have like an effect like hours after,
right?
If you worked really hard.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And these are just some guidelines that we're sharing with you now, that we had on our family education sheet when you a while ago, or however long ago, when you're on the inpatient side. And these are always great resources that your team can access for you too. It just gives you a little bit of guidance. And again, it's all a starting point. And in all honesty, it's a lot of trial and error, because your body and your child's body is very different than everybody else's. But I think it's really important to have a good place to begin. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And we talked about this too. So making a plan. The biggest plan is making your day awesome. I love this picture here. It was from a book that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, but make your day awesome and have a good one, but planning it. So planning when your physical activity is, making sure you have your peanut butter or some butter, something in the car with you at all times, because sometimes being kind of spontaneous in diabetes doesn't always work. So meaning, gosh, my friends are going for a walk and I want to go. Well, there's a little bit of planning that does go with that, and being prepared. So making sure that we're looking at kind of what your day is looking like, and making some adjustments. So if you have a play date after school and lunch is a little bit later, and you're going to be outside because it's a gorgeous day and it's springtime, maybe we don't give us the full coverage for lunch, and your glucose might run a little bit higher, but you're going to be exercising and it will come down. Another option when we think about insulin pumps is using activity mode. So activity mode or exercise mode, when we talk about a tandem pump, basically what that does is it increases your target a little bit and also backs off on your basal. So when you think of using some mode like this, it's really important to do it 1 to 2 hours before the activity, because basal doesn't happen right now. Basal affects you a little bit later on. So backing off early on can really be helpful with activity. But again, that's something that you have to, plan for. So let's say you have soccer after school every day. I keep coming back to soccer because it's just so intense activity, right? So with soccer every day after school, you may give a bolus at lunch and throw your activity mode on, because it's a couple of hours ahead of time and you're touching your pump and thinking about your diabetes for just a minute.
That's a good idea.
Turning it on at lunch and then setting it until the end of the end of soccer practice. Some strategies.
So that's even more than an hour.
Yep.
Before it starts. Yeah.
And that's totally fine. Again, because when you're thinking about these specific systems, the system's going to help you respond a little bit. If your glucose is rising, it's going to help a little, but it's going to also be a nice safe piece.
Nice.
And you'll know if you're using the Omnipod 5, if you look, it will say that activity mode is on. If you're using the Tandem, you'll see this little running man right here in the corner. And that tells you that activity mode is on. And that one of the newer updates of the Tandem is that you can turn your exercise mode on for a specific duration. In the past, it was you turn it on and then you had to remember to shut it off. But the newest upgrade, you can put it on for duration, which is nice. One of the other pieces, and I took this from Dr. Garvey. Dr. Garvey and Marie and I went to the JDRF Summit this weekend, and I kind of forgot about this book, but it's really neat. So Bright Spots and Landmines by Adam Brown. You actually can go to Diatribe, you can go to this website and download a PDF, or you can purchase it on Amazon, but it's really helpful tips with diabetes. So there's eating tips, there's being mindful, there's information about exercise, how sleep is so important with your management. One of the things I liked with this is that there's often at the end of every chapter, there's some questions. So you can look at the questions and say, okay, when was how did I do it right yesterday? Right? Because there's some days where you're like, I just didn't diabetes well today. And then the next day you're like, wow, here I am back on it. Right. So I think some of the pieces when you're back on it and you're feeling like you're in a good spot, take note of what you did. What was my snack for today before I exercised? It worked out really well last night. I'm not going to guarantee it's going to be great the next time, but it's a good place to start. Right. What was my number when I started? What was my number when I ended? And it really will help you figure out what works for you and try to replicate it. And again, it's and then the wind blows and sometimes so to that point, there are so many things that affect our glucose values, right? So we're talking about, the awesome food. Look at how cute this is, by the way.
I know. I
came out really cute.
Yes.
So we're talking about food and how food affects our glucose value, and we'll see our frittata in a few moments. And then we also think about what type of carbohydrate. Sharon said that quinoa is a great carbohydrate because it has so much protein in it, right? However, it affects you much differently than a bagel if you're going to be eating a bagel. Thinking about stress, thinking about illness, thinking about sleep. As we look here, insufficient sleep can bring up your glucose value. So there are so many pieces that I just want you all to know that it's okay, and we see what happens and we move on and we say, okay, how did that happen? Okay, we got it, moving on to the next day. Every blood sugar is a good number because it gives us info and it allows us to figure out kind of how we do this.
Yeah.
So
I love this chart. So it's really covers so much.
It does, right? And then even if we look at the exercise, like we're talking about, what time of day is the exercise? I need to work out in the morning because the rest of my day, I'm more resistant in the morning. So, working out at different times of the day can certainly affect your glucose values too. So, lots of things to think about with activity. I'm going to get out of the way so we don't get burnt with frittata, but
so
amazing.
We've got all of our things here.
Okay.
We've got our, when you'll know when your frittata is done, when you jiggle it and it's not jiggly.
Okay.
So that is really, I'm just going to get it all in the screen there. So yeah, so this is basically what we're going to do now is just kind of cut it like a pizza pie.
Oh, I love it.
And this makes great leftovers.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, you could have this for breakfast next
Absolutely.
morning.
Absolutely.
You could even start your day by making this for breakfast if you got up early, you know. But this makes great leftovers for lunch, and it's really also a great way to add in vegetables for our non-vegetable eaters.
And this serves how many? 8.
So this would make 8
8
servings.
servings. Okay.
Yeah.
Like a pizza,
Yeah.
right? 8 slices.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Wow.
let's see. So I'm just gonna scoop.
Go back and see. I can't remember how many carbs were in one piece because now I have to take insulin if I'm going to be
Oh
eating
yes.
this, right?
Let's see. We'll just scoot on back. Let's see. I can help. It was
3
3.
carbs. 3 carbs for a whole piece, and I think we said 37 for that.
Yep. If you have like the 1/6 of that, that's pretty
1/6.
good serving, right?
I'm not that hungry right now.
So yeah. And I'm just gonna scoop this out.
Oh, look at that. That looks awesome.
Yeah. So, it doesn't stick to the bottom because we started by sauteing all those vegetables with the olive oil, right? So it really is easy to come out of the pan.
Awesome.
And then we've got our salad. This is so pretty.
It is so pretty. And healthy.
Full of health. Yes.
I love it.
Yeah. There.
Okay. And
And
then
then
of
we have
course,
some pretty little
I need
bombs. Yeah. So I love these.
Okay, here we go. I'm gonna take a little bit of insulin. Should be 15 minutes ago I did this, but that's okay. We're just gonna have a little snack. Perfect. All right. What are you trying first?
All right, I'm gonna try the quinoa too.
Me too, because I think that frittata is toasty. That's delicious. And I definitely can taste the vinaigrette.
Mm-hmm.
I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm. And if this sat overnight in the refrigerator and you felt like it was a little too dry
Okay.
the next day because it absorbs so much of the vinaigrette, you could just make a second batch of the vinaigrette.
Oh, sure.
Because it's really just vinegar and olive oil
And you don't
the
have to put the
mustard.
honey,
You do not have to add the honey.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can just that really wouldn't affect things.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. That was really good.
That was delicious. Okay, now I'm gonna try
All
this
right.
frittata.
Frittata.
So good. Boy, I like it.
Yum.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
That's delicious.
Yeah. It's kind of like a quiche, but it has no crust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So there's your hidden carbs in the crust, right?
Yeah. So it's also gluten-free.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then our little
All right, let's do a
fruit
dip.
chips. Mmm.
Oh, I like the cinnamon with it.
Yum.
I was like, that's delicious.
Oh, that's
So
really good.
So good. Oh, this is awesome. Nice work, Sharon.
Thank you.
So fun. I'm glad she's the cook. That's awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us on look at our beautiful plates. They're delish. Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us again at our cooking class, our festivities, and we'll hopefully see you around summertime.
Yep.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye.